how did you convince your parents to begin your journey with Saja Sapne and leaving a job that you have got from IIT?
Yeah. Oh, I think that was it was a pretty hard deal for me as well. I mean, I also call myself a Sapne Wali for doing that.
So, what has been your inspiration behind setting up Sajay Sapne?
Okay, so I am not the founder of Saji Sapne. I was a second member in the team. So the vision behind setting up Saji Sapne was it was sort of twofold. One is that we want to change the perspective of rural women. When you and I just if we imagine a rural woman, we don't imagine her at a leadership position. We imagine her doing some farming work or some tailoring work. These kind of jobs are what we imagine for her. So this is the kind of perspective that we want to change. That they can actually be at leadership positions. They can be educators, they can be lawyers, they can be engineers, whatever they want. They should have the platform, they should have the resources to choose a career and to build a career for themselves. So like this is one that we need to change the perspective, and instead of focusing on their pain, we want to focus on their potential. So this is the main vision of Saji Sapne. And secondly, we feel that we want to provide a professional platform where they can come together, where they can learn together, and where they can find opportunities. Because LinkedIn platforms like LinkedIn are very inaccessible to them. It's only the urban people who are present on LinkedIn, right? So we want to create a network for them which is accessible to them and where they can find opportunities for themselves. So yeah, this was the main vision behind starting Saji Sapne.
That's an incredible vision, and I guess that was a need of the hour, because we don't see these kind of initiatives coming out. And of course, we need, if we want global economy, we need women to stand out.
Yeah. And you would be surprised to know that it's more than 200 million rural young women who are not employed in the main job market, the mainstream market. And that's the kind of potential that we were losing out on. And that is where we want to tap in.
That's great. So what are the prominent problems that Saja Sapne has to face while setting up an education center at a new place?
Okay. So I won't call these problems, I would call these challenges or things that we had to work hard for, right? So I think first and foremost was bringing the students on board. So as we know that we are talking about rural women. So, these are the women who have a lot of restrictions in their homes. Their families don't allow them to leave the home. And for these women, we expected them to leave their houses from different states and actually come for a residential campus in Himachal Pradesh, which is unknown to their entire families. So this was a huge deal. So this was actually my job, that I had to, find out these potential candidates who are who dream a lot and who have goals for themselves and who want to work hard for it. And then I had to negotiate with their families that please send your daughters, we'll take care of them. And it took a lot of negotiation and took a lot of convincing to finally get them to agree and to send their daughters here. So I think that was the first big challenge for us. Second one was when the students came here. So they came from a very different kind of lifestyle, and now they had to suddenly come here and just start working hard. Just start. I mean, they used to work hard earlier also, but it was a different kind of hard work. It was something related to farming or things like that. But now they had to come here and then they had to start working on laptops, just get the assignments done. And a lot of times, I mean, it was so challenging for them because it was very new for them and we expected a lot from them. We did not allow them to slack at all. So I think setting up the kind of culture, setting up things like professionalism, so all these things were I think that was my biggest learning at Saji Sapne as well, that how do you set up the culture, how do you deal with situations, how do you maintain their emotional well-being. A lot of times their family members, let's say, passed away or got sick. So at that moment we could not actually allow them to leave, but we had to take care of them. So maintaining their emotional well-being and at the same time being being emotionally well ourselves, because sometimes it used to get too overwhelming, too much for us to deal with also. So I think that was there. Apart from that, creating content which is contextual for them. I think this was something which was new for our entire team. So if we look at all the online courses out there, the best online courses out there, so all of them are in English and most of them are they have some American context. So what our job was to kind of look at these courses, see how they are building these skills, and then use this content to contextualize for our students, because they won't understand the American context, right? And if we use Indian urban context also, then they will feel that this is something outside of their lives, but we wanted to make it a part of their lives. So thinking of examples which they could relate with, which they have faced in their lives, and then introducing any topic, or then introducing the importance of something. That was a key challenge for us. I think that is something we are still working on, still improving. So that was there. And then I think finally negotiating with the employers that listen, we know that our students don't have the degrees, but they have been able to learn so much in the last 8 months. So we can guarantee that they'll be able to do a good job. They just need some good mentoring, some good support, and then they will be able to do the job. So I think that negotiation thing was also a big deal for us. Apart from this, actually, I forgot to mention the funding part. So of course, funding for any non-profit enterprise is a big deal, and so I think we were very lucky in that aspect. Last year, when we wanted to start the center, so our team decided to do a crowdfunding campaign, and in just 4 days, we were able to raise 25 lakhs, which was required for setting our residential campus. So I think that we were very lucky in that sense. So yeah, of course, fundraising is also a big deal. Yeah.
How did you convince your parents to begin your journey with Saja Sapne and leaving a job that you have got from IIT?
Yeah. Oh, I think that was it was a pretty hard deal for me as well. I mean, I also call myself a Sapne Wali for doing that. So I'll just begin with sharing how I decided to how I joined Saja Sapne, and then how was the entire convincing thing with my family. So when I was into management consulting after my graduation, so we used to use the word impact a lot, but and impact was definitely there in terms of growth of the businesses, in terms of numbers. But for me, impact meant something different. For me, I could not see the impact in those numbers, but for me, impact means lives of people. How am I actually creating some impact on lives of people? And this was definitely not there. So that I think there was some dissatisfaction in me, and I was a bit restless to find something which could actually make me feel the impact thing. So that's when I found out about Surbhi. She had mentioned somewhere on LinkedIn that she's starting an organization, Saji Sapne, which is still not like implemented. It's still in the idea phase, and she was just giving a pitch. So I listened to her pitch, and I was just so impressed because I always wanted to work with women. And when I heard her pitch, I could just relate with that. I could just feel that if I want to work with women, why not work in the areas where it is most required? Rural women is actually the areas that is totally untapped. So I think that is when I related with her vision, and that is when I decided that I want to work with her. So that's when I started volunteering, and I started taking online sessions with a few students. And then one day we decided that I'll go to Himachal Pradesh where she was working, and I'll just work along with my job and see how it goes. So that was when I had to convince my family. So I think it was a very heavy discussion for my family members and me, because for them it did not make any sense. It was like leaving like prestigious job with a good salary, which was close to home. So everything was perfect in that job for them. But for me, the dissatisfaction was so huge. I could not just be there anymore. So I think I negotiated a lot with them. They were really unhappy, but I told them that I just want to try this once, and because I have this sort of backup, even if I fail, even if I want to get back, I always have that option. So I think I just want to try this once. And even though they did not understand it, even though they did not agree with it, and because social sector is very new, no one in my family is in the social sector, so they could not understand this as a career option. They thought that it is something that you do after retirement. So it was very difficult to convince them, and they were not convinced, but they did not say no. We had a huge discussion. I knew they were upset, but they could see that I really want to do this. They did not say no. I came here, I volunteered, and after a month, they also visited me. They saw the place. They met all the people, and then when I got back home, then I decided that I'll resign. And I mean, till date, they are not 100% supportive, but I'm happy that they understand why I'm doing this. They understand that I am happy doing this. So I still get questions like, what is your plan in the future? Are you planning to stay unmarried for your whole life? Because you're living in a village in Himachal Pradesh. So these kind of questions come to me a lot. But I think they have still been very much patient in understanding, because this has been a huge deal for them as well. Because I've never stayed away from home this much, and and everyone is in the corporate sector, and I being from IIT, so this was what I was expected of me, that I'll earn a lot and I'll have a luxurious life. But sadly, that's not the case. This is what I find my happiness in, and I think that they have somewhat adjusted to this fact as well. So
yeah, that must be a heavy conversation. What I can feel is, but I guess this answer will help a lot of students who listen to this podcast, because they always find this a complex deal to convince their parents and start something unconventional.
Yeah. I think when people say that, oh, you are from IIT, so don't you feel that you should earn more and all? I mean, what I think is that because I'm from IIT, I should be able to take the risks because I have this backup, I have this tag, and I know I can, I can get any opportunity that I want because of this tag. So why not take the risk and just try what I really want to?
Great. So you told about the crowdfunding thing. So who came up with this idea, and what were the challenges to set up crowdfunding, the website, and go, approaching the right people so that you get the right amount?
Yeah. So I think it was actually, I think, one of our volunteers' idea. So she suggested that why not do a crowdfunding campaign, and I think it was also suggested by one of our advisors, Sandhya ma'am. So yeah, 2-3 people suggested, and we were not very sure that if it would actually be a success, but we just decided to start working on it. And so yeah, so our team actually figured out what are the different platforms and what is the kind of fees, what is the kind of accessibility of these platforms. So all that was taken into account, and then we finalized Milap as the account that we would want to work with. And I think Milap had been really helpful with us. I mean, they were just a call away. If we faced any problems, they were just there, and they also provided a lot of matching donations for us. So and yeah, so I think we as a team feel really proud that we were able to raise that amount in just 4 days. But we had actually planned to do it in 2 months, and it actually happened in 4 days. So I think it was a lot of sleepless nights, and it was just a lot of work, but it was so good because we were just there in the momentum. We used to just constantly discuss on group, on calls. Oh, this is happening now, I've posted this, now I've posted this. So we used to discuss so much, and people used to just, like, the team was just there the entire time, like for 4 days straight. We were just into this, so we reached out to all our family, all our friends. That's when I told most of my friends about my job switch, and then we randomly started cold emailing influencers, and we got a lot of money from influencers as well, because I think for us it was more important to tell our stories, that why do we think that we deserve this money. So this was the question that was there in our mind, and we used to answer this question a lot through our posts. We used to answer this question when writing emails to influencers. We used to answer this question, and we were actually lucky to have a few influencers on board who decided to promote our content, like who decided to promote our campaign as well. So I think yeah, this was the whole work behind this campaign. A lot of posts, personal stories, reaching out to friends, relatives, everyone. We used to discuss that, oh, I haven't talked to this friend in last 6 years, but now I'll reach out to this person. So these are the kind of stories that we had. But I think because our motivation was very strong enough, we believe firmly that we need this money because this center has to be there. I think as a team we were able to pull it off, and yeah.
How did you find the right mentors for giving Saje Sapne the right shape?
Okay, I think so. We have been very lucky in that sense. So there is this organization called Avishkar, which has been working in the education space for last 7-8 years. So the founders of Avishkar, Sandhya and Sarit, they have been Surbhi the founder's mentor for last 5-6 years. And when she was struggling with the idea and how to start it, so I think they were there to help her. And when I came and met them, so they became my mentors as well. So now, I mean, they have been really generous with us. They help us in everyday strategy, everyday planning, and they have generously offered their campus to us, where our entire team operates and the students come and study. So like Saje Sapne and Avishkar team operates together on the Avishkar campus, and that's when we do a lot of brainstorming together, a lot of strategy discussions. So all those discussions are done here itself, and I think it's a very rich experience for both the teams to see how we are working, because Avishkar is very strong in developing the contextual content, like how to make content which is contextual and which has a lot of games and interesting things. So because we see them working on this very actively, that's why we get inspired to make our content that great. So I think we have been very lucky to be offered this space. And apart from that, we also have Prabha's director Neha. She's also an advisor, and we got to know her through one of our fellowships called Change Looms. So we have been a part of this fellowship, and this fellowship has helped us to build an entire community of young entrepreneurs who are working in the social space. And they have also provided with us a lot of mentoring, support, resources, whatever we need at any point. So they have provided us with that. And Neha, who is the director of Prabha, she's also now our advisor, and she also helps us in everyday strategy, like how should we plan this, how should we plan that, everything. So I think people have been very generous with us in that sense.
So what has been the entire experience of expanding your team gradually, and how do you convince more women to collaborate with Saja Sapne, like as you left your job? So how do you convince more women to do the same?
Okay, so honestly, people themselves come to us. We don't really have had to reach out to people and say come join us. In that sense, we have been lucky. So like first Subhi was there, then I came, and then Ekta also came in a similar fashion. She was working at Infosys and she came to volunteer and she just loved it, and then she also decided to join us full time. While searching for the fourth member, we I think we actually did interviews for a few months, and after that, because for us the team culture is really important, because the team is so invested in the work, so invested in the vision, that every person has their own space, has their own contribution to make. So for us, having the perfect fourth person in the team was really important, and we did interviews for months, and then we found Ankita, who has been in this space for last 4-5 years, and she's also as passionate about the goal. So I think for us it has been the fact that the vision is so clear to us, that we are not ready to compromise on anything. Like, when people say that why are you working with women only, or when they say that why are you not working with urban women, there is a lot of need in slum areas as well. But we know that we want to focus specifically on the rural women, because they are the most excluded ones in this space right now. So I think the clarity of the vision, the dedication and hard work of the team, the bond that we have with each other, that has helped us create a really good culture within the organization. And the culture is so strong now that anyone who comes here now, the person sort of flows into the culture. We don't really have to say, yo, you need to come on time, you need to do this, you need to do that. We don't have to do that. They just flow inside the culture because it has been so strong. And the drive to excel is just so strong in each and every team member. It's very easy to, it's actually very infectious, I would say.
Yeah, even I'm getting goosebumps by listening to your answer. Which cities do you wish to expand Saja Sapne in the next year?
Okay. So currently in our first batch, we had 25 women who came from 6 different states, villages of 6 different states. The states included states like Bihar, UP, Jharkhand, Rajasthan, Himachal, and MP. So now we plan for the next year, we plan to have a bigger batch of 50 women. We do want to expand it to more states, states like Assam, Kashmir, where the geographies are like where the women have still more restrictions. Firstly, we want to expand there as well. We want to get women from those places. Secondly, I have a very deep wish that we are able to start a center in Bihar in the coming year. And the reason for that is because when I was mobilizing women for the first batch, so I spoke to so many parents, so many families, and honestly, more than 50% of them said no. And it was so heartbreaking, so painful, because the students really wanted to come. The women were really excited to come, but their family said no, and they did not have the agency to fight or to negotiate. And a lot of families said that a lot of families from Bihar specifically said that the campus is very far, and we cannot trust you. We cannot trust you with the safety of our daughters. So that is when I started thinking that if we have a center in Bihar, they would not have to think so much before sending of their daughters. So I think I really wish that in the next year we are able to set up a center in Bihar. That would be really amazing.
Okay. How can anyone contribute towards Saja Sapne? Could you please enlighten us about the different donation options?
Yeah. So currently we are running our second crowdfunding campaign because we are raising funds for next year. So as I mentioned before, we will be doing the second batch with 50 women. And for that, we need 50 lakhs. So we have already achieved around 25 lakhs so far, and we need 25 more. So yeah. So I think if anyone wants to donate, you can go to Milap website, and then you can just type Saja Sapne. You will see the first campaign as launching careers of young rural women. Mm-hmm. So that is where you can actually go and donate.
So how would you express your feeling in the rawest form when a Sapne Wali successfully gets recruited in a big company?
Okay. So I think, firstly, I'm really, really proud of all the Sapne Walis that we have in our cohort. I mean, in the last 9 months, I have seen them grow. I've seen them transform. I have seen them work hard every single day, make mistakes. There have been a lot of times when they have got harsh feedback from the team, but they have never stopped chasing their dreams. Every day they are just so energetic, and they are just so ready to chase their dreams. So when anyone gets recruited, I do feel grateful, but at the same time, I have this feeling that, oh, they deserve it. They deserve so much. And when I imagine them doing their jobs, I can see how much they would grow in the next few months, next few years, and how much they would be able to achieve. That makes me very proud. That makes me very grateful and everything.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Can you please tell us something about the Sapne Wali podcast so that more listeners could tap onto that podcast?
Yeah. So Sapne Wali podcast was started with a vision that every one of us wants role models, and for us in the urban space, we have so many role models, and uh, but if we think about rural women, so they lack this particular thing, they don't have any role models. So this podcast was started because we decided to identify those rare rural women who have been able to achieve great things in life. So so you'll if you actually go to the podcast and hear it, you'll be able to listen to women of who are in their 50s or who are in their 20s. So the age group would vary, but their willpower, the way they have fought against all the obstacles. Because if you think about the rural areas, so most of them have the pressure of getting married, and they are not supposed to do jobs and all. So if you listen to their stories, you will see they have not only done jobs, but they have also sort of uh, done different things, like not very conventional things. So like for example, there is a woman who did not know English at all, and a few years later she actually goes and studies in America. It was a very big deal for her to actually be able to do that, and she had also left her studies for 10 years. 10 years later, she continued her studies, and then she went to America, even when she was not good at English. So I think one of the stories tells about the story of the only woman in Bir who is a paragliding pilot, basically, who deals with the customers and who gives them the paragliding rides. So she's the only woman who is
episode.
Yeah. I mean, when I met the girl Aditi, I was so impressed. I was so impressed by her confidence, and she's just 18 years old. You know, so I think you'll hear stories from different careers, different villages, different areas, and different age groups, but they all have the same thing in common. They have dreamt big, and they have been able to achieve their dreams despite all the restrictions. And when we know that us being the urban women, we have faced so much restrictions in our lives. It's hard to imagine how they would have been able to overcome their restrictions. So yeah, I think the podcast is really powerful, and we hope to be able to make it accessible to all the rural women out there so that they can dream and they can think about achieving their dreams.
What message would you like to give to young girls who are listening to this episode now?
Okay, I think I would like to say two things. One would be that I think everyone should actually get out and explore. It would be very challenging, very difficult, and a lot of people would say no, that that you should not do this. And being a woman, we mostly have to fight for getting the agency in our life, so that we are able to take our own decisions and not let anyone else take those decisions. So, but if you are actually able to reach that level, if you are actually able to take decisions for yourself, the amount of confidence that you get is just unparalleled. It's just amazing. And I think that people, your family, would eventually understand you. So I think you should just go out there, you should try, you should just negotiate whatever is possible and just do what you feel like doing. That is one. And the second very important message would be that so these days we talk a lot about feminism, about gender equality, but what I feel is that a lot of us have gotten the language, but we have not understood it properly. So I would just encourage young women and even men to read about feminism, try to get into the depth of it. You can actually watch Kamladi's videos. I think they were the first exposure for me to real feminism. And I feel that being women, it's sort of our responsibility. It is something that we owe ourselves and the future generations, that we are able to make a change in the society, and we are able to change the way people look at women and treat them. It's our responsibility to make sure that we are at par with the men in the society. So we are fighting against patriarchy, but we are not supporting matriarchy.
Yeah, that was a beautiful, courageous ending to this podcast episode, and I hope that you thoroughly enjoyed this conversation as much as I did.
Yeah. It's more than 200 million rural young women who are not employed in the main job market, the mainstream market, and that's the kind of potential that we were losing out on.